When single dad Tom saw the boy drowning, he didn't think twice. The electric wires in the water could kill him, but he jumped anyway. The next morning, Tom lay dying in the hospital. Then a stranger in an expensive suit walked through the door, carrying flowers and secrets. Before watching full story, comment below from where are you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Tom Miller wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished his shift at the construction site. The rain was coming down hard, and he knew he had to hurry home to his 8-year-old son Danny. Being a single dad wasn't easy, especially when money was tight and every day was a struggle. His wife Sarah had died in a car accident 3 years ago, leaving him to raise Danny alone. Tom worked double shifts whenever he could, but it was never enough. The bills kept piling up and Danny needed so many things: new shoes, school supplies, warm clothes for winter. But Tom never complained. Danny was his whole world, his reason for living. Every sacrifice was worth it to see his son's bright smile. "Dad." Danny ran to him as soon as Tom walked through the door of their small apartment. "I made you a drawing at school today." Tom's heart melted as he looked at the crayon drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. "That's beautiful, buddy. Is that us?" "Yes. And look, I wrote 'Best Dad Ever' at the bottom." Tom hugged his son tight, fighting back tears. If only Danny knew how hard his dad was trying just to keep them afloat. The next day was Saturday, and Tom decided to take Danny to the park despite the gloomy weather. They didn't have money for expensive outings, but the park was free and Danny loved the swings. "Higher, Dad. Push me higher." Danny laughed as Tom pushed his swing. "Hold on tight, buddy." Tom called back, smiling at his son's joy. That's when they heard the screaming. Near the pond, a crowd was gathering. Tom could see people pointing at the water, their faces filled with panic. "Someone call 911, a woman shouted. A boy fell through the ice. Tom's construction worker instincts kicked in. He ran toward the commotion, leaving Danny by the swings. "Stay right there," he called over his shoulder. At the pond, Tom saw the horrible scene. A young boy, maybe 6 years old, had fallen through thin ice while chasing his ball. He was struggling in the freezing water, his small hands desperately trying to grip the broken ice edges. The boy's mother was screaming, tears streaming down her face. "Please, someone help him. He can't swim." Several people stood around, but no one was moving. The water was too dangerous, and the electrical wires from a damaged streetlight were sparking dangerously close to the pond. "The power lines are down," someone yelled. "The water might be electrified." Tom looked at the terrified mother, then at the drowning child. In that moment he didn't think about his own safety. He thought about Danny, about how he would feel if it were his son in that water. "I'm going in," Tom announced, taking off his jacket. "Are you crazy?" A man grabbed his arm. "Those power lines could kill you." "That boy will definitely die if no one helps him," Tom replied, his voice steady but determined. He looked back at Danny, who was watching from the swings with wide, frightened eyes. Tom's heart broke knowing this might be the last time he saw his son. "Danny," Tom called out. "Daddy loves you more than anything in this world. Always remember that." Before anyone could stop him, Tom dove into the icy water. The cold hit him like 1,000 knives, but he pushed forward toward the drowning boy. Behind him he could hear Danny screaming, "Daddy, come back." The water was darker than Tom expected, and the current was strong. His heavy work boots made swimming difficult, but he fought against the freezing water with everything he had. Finally he reached the boy, who was barely conscious and blue from the cold. "I've got you," Tom whispered, wrapping his arm around the child's tiny body. "You're going to be okay." But as Tom turned to swim back to shore, disaster struck. The damaged electrical wire fell into the water with a loud splash and a burst of sparks. The electrical current shot through the water like lightning. Tom felt the shock hit his body with incredible force, but he held the boy tighter, using his own body as a shield. Pain beyond imagination shot through every muscle, every nerve. Tom's vision blurred, but he fought to stay conscious. He had to save this child. He had to get him to safety. With his last bit of strength, Tom pushed the boy toward the shore where other people pulled him to safety. The boy was alive, breathing, safe. But Tom couldn't hold on anymore. The electrical shock had damaged his heart, his nervous system. As he sank beneath the dark water, his last thought was of Danny's smiling face. Emergency responders pulled Tom from the water 15 minutes later. He wasn't breathing and his heart had stopped. They worked on him for what felt like hours, trying everything to bring him back. Finally, his heart started beating again, but barely. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Danny rode in the ambulance, holding his father's cold hand and crying. "Please don't leave me, Daddy. I need you. I love you so much." At the hospital, doctors delivered the devastating news. The electrical shock had caused severe damage to Tom's heart and brain. He was in a coma, and they weren't sure if he would ever wake up. "Even if he does wake up," the doctor said gently, "there might be permanent damage. You should prepare for the worst." Danny refused to leave his father's bedside. Neighbors and friends from their apartment building took turns watching him, bringing food and comfort. But Danny barely ate, barely spoke. He just held his father's hand and whispered, "Please come back to me." The boy Tom had saved, little Marcus, made a full recovery. His wealthy family was eternally grateful, but Tom remained unconscious, fighting for his life. Days turned into weeks. The medical bills piled up like mountains. Tom had no insurance, and the treatment was costing thousands of dollars every day. The hospital was patient, but Danny overheard nurses talking about transferring his father to a cheaper facility. 3 weeks after the accident, on a rainy Tuesday morning, an expensive black car pulled up to the hospital. From it stepped a well-dressed man in his 50s, carrying flowers and wearing a serious expression. The man walked directly to Tom's room, where Danny was reading a story aloud to his unconscious father. "Excuse me," the stranger said gently. "Are you Danny Miller?" Danny looked up with tired red eyes. "Yes, sir." "Are you a doctor?" "No, son. My name is Robert Harrison. I'm Marcus's grandfather." Danny's eyes widened. Marcus was the boy his father had saved. "I wanted to thank you and your father personally," Mr. Harrison continued, his voice heavy with emotion. "Your dad saved my grandson's life. Marcus is my only grandchild, and he means everything to me." Danny nodded but didn't say anything. He was used to people saying thank you, but it didn't help his father wake up. Mr. Harrison sat down in the chair beside Danny. "Tell me about your dad. What kind of man is he?" For the first time in weeks, Danny's face lit up a little. "He's the best dad in the world. He works really hard to take care of me. He makes me breakfast every morning even when he's tired. He helps me with homework even though he never finished high school himself. And he always says I'm the most important thing in his life." Mr. Harrison listened carefully as Danny continued. "We don't have much money, but Dad never makes me feel bad about it. Last Christmas he worked extra shifts for 2 months just to buy me a bike. It was used, but he painted it blue because that's my favorite color." Danny's voice broke a little. "He tells me stories every night before bed. Made up stories about brave knights and dragons. He always makes the knight look like me, and the knight always wins because he's good and kind." Mr. Harrison had tears in his eyes. "Your father sounds like a real hero." "He is," Danny whispered. "And now he might die because he saved Marcus. I'm happy Marcus is okay, but I need my dad too." That night, Mr. Harrison couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Danny's words, about Tom's sacrifice, and about the unfairness of the situation. Robert Harrison was worth billions. He had built his fortune in technology and real estate, but he had never forgotten what it was like to struggle. His own father had been a working man who taught him the value of hard work and helping others. The next morning, Mr. Harrison began making phone calls. He wanted to know everything about Tom Miller and his life. What he discovered made him both sad and angry. Tom had been working construction for 12 years, always reliable, always honest. His co-workers described him as the kind of man who would give you his last dollar if you needed it. After his wife died, he had taken on extra jobs to support Danny, often working 16-hour days. Despite his hard work, Tom was barely making ends meet. The apartment they lived in was small and run down, but it was clean and filled with love. Danny's teacher said he was a bright, kind boy who never complained about not having the things other kids had. The medical bills from Tom's hospitalization were already over $200,000 and growing every day. Even if Tom survived, the debt would crush any chance of a normal life for him and Danny. But what made Mr. Harrison angriest was learning about Tom's employer, Construction Plus, owned by a man named Rick Hartman. Rick Hartman was known in the construction industry as a man who cared more about profits than people. He paid his workers the minimum wage possible, offered no benefits, and fired anyone who complained. When Mr. Harrison's investigator dug deeper, they found that Hartman had been cheating his workers for years. He charged them for equipment rental and safety gear that should have been provided free. He found excuses to dock their pay and often delayed paychecks by weeks. Tom had been working for Hartman for 3 years, and during that time he had been cheated out of thousands of dollars that should have been his. Even worse, when Tom was hospitalized, Hartman had immediately fired him, claiming he was unreliable and wouldn't be returning to work anyway. This meant Tom lost what little income he had, and there was no company support for his medical bills. Mr. Harrison felt his anger building. Here was a man who had sacrificed everything to save a child, and his own employer had abandoned him in his darkest hour. "This won't stand," Mr. Harrison said to his assistant. "I want everything we can find on Rick Hartman and Construction Plus. Every lawsuit, every complaint, every dirty deal. And I want it by tomorrow." While Mr. Harrison was investigating, Danny was facing his own crisis. Social services had been called because he was a minor with no guardian. Tom had no living relatives, and there was no one to take care of Danny if his father didn't recover. Mrs. Peterson, the social worker, was kind but firm. "Danny, we need to find you a temporary home while your father recovers. There's a nice foster family who can take care of you." "No," Danny cried. "I won't leave my dad. What if he wakes up and I'm not here? He'll think I abandoned him." "Sweetheart, you can visit him every day. But you need proper care, meals, a bed to sleep in." Danny had been sleeping in the hospital chair for weeks, eating whatever kind people brought him. He was thin and exhausted, but his determination was unbreakable. "My dad didn't abandon that little boy, and I won't abandon him," Danny said firmly. "We're a team. We stick together." That's when Mr. Harrison walked into the room. "Mrs. Peterson, I'd like to speak with you privately," he said. 20 minutes later, Mrs. Peterson came back with a smile on her face. "Danny, Mr. Harrison has offered to be your temporary guardian while your father recovers. He'll make sure you can stay here with your dad and have everything you need." Danny looked suspicious. "Why would you do that for us?" Mr. Harrison knelt down to Danny's level. "Because your father is a hero and heroes deserve better. Because you're a loyal son and that means something. And because I have the power to help, so I should use it." Over the next week, Mr. Harrison quietly took action. First, he paid all of Tom's medical bills and arranged for the best specialists to treat him. He set up a trust fund for Danny's education and future needs. But his real target was Rick Hartman. Mr. Harrison's lawyers filed multiple lawsuits against Construction Plus. They sued for wage theft, unsafe working conditions, and failure to provide proper benefits. They also filed complaints with the Department of Labor and several other government agencies. But Hartman was a fighter, and he was furious that someone was challenging him. "Who does this Harrison think he is?" Hartman raged to his lawyer. "Tom Miller was just another worker. He chose to jump in that water. It's not my problem if he got himself electrocuted." "Rick, you need to be careful," his lawyer warned. "Harrison has resources and public opinion on his side. This story is getting media attention. The man who saved a child is in a coma while his employer abandoned him? It doesn't look good." "I don't care how it looks," Hartman shouted. "I run my business my way. I'm not giving these workers one extra penny." Hartman decided to fight back. He hired private investigators to dig up dirt on Tom and his family. He spread rumors that Tom was a drunk who had jumped in the water by accident. He even tried to claim that Tom had stolen money from the company. None of it was true, but Hartman didn't care. He was used to bullying people who couldn't fight back. But he had never faced someone like Robert Harrison. As word spread about Tom's story, the local community began to rally around him and Danny. The local newspaper ran a front-page story titled, "Hero Father Fights for Life After Saving Drowning Child." People who had never met Tom began sending cards, flowers, and donations. The boy's mother, whose son Tom had saved, started a crowdfunding campaign that raised thousands of dollars in days. Children from Danny's school made get-well cards. One little girl wrote, "Your dad is the bravest man in the world. I hope he wakes up soon so you can hug him." But the support only made Rick Hartman angrier. He felt like everyone was turning against him unfairly. "These bleeding hearts don't understand business," he complained. "If I start paying for every worker who gets hurt, I'll go bankrupt." Hartman's cruelty was becoming public knowledge. Local TV news interviewed several of his former employees who told stories of wage theft, dangerous working conditions, and heartless treatment. One man, Carlos, said through tears, "Rick Hartman fired me when my daughter got cancer and I needed time off for her treatments. He said family problems weren't his responsibility. Tom Miller was the only one who stood up for me. He even gave me money from his own pocket to help pay for my daughter's medicine." The public was outraged. Protesters gathered outside Construction Plus with signs reading "Justice for Tom Miller" and "Hartman equals heartless." After 5 weeks in the coma, something miraculous happened. Tom's eyes fluttered open. "Dad!" Danny cried, jumping up from his chair. "You're awake. I knew you wouldn't leave me." Tom's voice was weak and hoarse, but his love for his son was unmistakable. "Danny, my boy, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Dad. Everyone's been taking care of me. And the little boy you saved, Marcus, he's completely okay." Tears rolled down Tom's face. "Good. That's all that matters." The doctors were amazed by Tom's recovery. There was some damage to his heart and he would need therapy to regain his full strength, but he was going to live. As Tom grew stronger over the next few days, Mr. Harrison visited regularly. He and Tom developed a deep friendship built on mutual respect. "I can never repay you for what you've done," Tom said. "Taking care of Danny, paying the medical bills, you saved us." "You saved my grandson first," Mr. Harrison replied. "And you showed me what real heroism looks like. Most people would have walked away from that pond. You ran toward danger to save a stranger's child." "Any father would have done the same thing," Tom said modestly. "No, Tom. That's where you're wrong. Most people wouldn't have acted. You did, knowing it might cost you your life, knowing it might leave Danny an orphan. That's not ordinary courage. That's something special." That's when Mr. Harrison revealed his true plan. "Tom, I want to offer you a job. I'm starting a new construction company, one that treats workers with dignity and respect. I want you to help me run it." Tom was stunned. "Sir, I appreciate the offer, but I don't have the education or experience to run a company." "You have something more valuable than formal education," Mr. Harrison said. "You have character. You understand what it's like to struggle, to worry about providing for your family. You know how workers should be treated because you've been mistreated yourself." While Tom was recovering, the legal battle against Rick Hartman was reaching its climax. Government investigators had found evidence of massive wage theft, safety violations, and fraud. Hartman was facing criminal charges and civil lawsuits totaling millions of dollars. His business was crumbling as workers quit and contracts were canceled. In a desperate attempt to save himself, Hartman tried one last cruel trick. He went to the media claiming that Tom had been a problem employee who was fired for good reasons. Tom Miller was unreliable and had a drinking problem, Hartman lied to a reporter. He jumped in that water because he was drunk and not thinking clearly. Now everyone wants to make him a hero, but I know the truth. The lies were quickly exposed. Hospital tests showed no alcohol in Tom's system. Dozens of co-workers and neighbors testified to Tom's character and sobriety. The false accusations only made the public angrier. The backlash against Hartman was swift and severe. Finally, facing bankruptcy and criminal prosecution, Hartman agreed to a settlement. He would pay $500,000 in back wages to his current and former employees, including Tom. He would also pay an additional $200,000 directly to Tom for the pain and suffering caused by his heartless treatment. Most importantly, Construction Plus was shut down permanently, and Hartman was banned from the construction industry. "Justice isn't just about punishment," Mr. Harrison told the media. "It's about making things right and ensuring this never happens to another family." 6 months later, Tom was fully recovered and working alongside Mr. Harrison to build their new construction company, Miller Harrison Construction. The company was everything Tom had dreamed of in an employer. Workers received fair wages, full benefits, and respect. Safety was the top priority, and there were no hidden fees or wage theft. "Every worker deserves dignity," Tom said at the company's opening ceremony. "Everyone deserves to come home safely to their family every day." Danny, now 9 years old, was thriving. He attended a good school and had made many friends. But more importantly, he had his father back, healthy and happy. The trust fund Mr. Harrison had set up would ensure Danny could attend any college he chose. But the greatest gift was seeing his father respected and valued for the good man he had always been. Marcus, the boy Tom had saved, became like a little brother to Danny. The two families spent holidays together and took vacations as one big loving family. "You gave me my grandson back," Mr. Harrison often told Tom. "But more than that, you reminded me what's truly important in life." Tom's story inspired changes far beyond his own life. The media coverage led to investigations of other construction companies with similar practices. Dozens of workers received back wages, and new safety regulations were implemented. A scholarship fund was created in Tom's name for children of construction workers who wanted to attend college. Danny was chosen to present the first scholarship to a deserving student. "My dad taught me that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it," Danny said at the scholarship ceremony. "These students will have opportunities my dad never had, but they're getting them because my dad showed everyone what real heroism looks like." Tom, watching his son speak with such wisdom and confidence, felt prouder than he ever thought possible. Rick Hartman, meanwhile, faced the consequences of his cruelty. He lost his business, his reputation, and most of his wealth in legal settlements. He was forced to take a job as a regular construction worker, experiencing firsthand the conditions he had once imposed on others. Some said it was poetic justice. Tom, in his characteristic kindness, simply said, "I hope he learns to treat people better." 2 years after the accident, Tom and Danny were stronger than ever. Their small apartment had been replaced with a comfortable home in a good neighborhood. Danny was excelling in school and had dreams of becoming an engineer. "I want to build things like you, Dad," Danny said. "But I want to design them first, make them even better and safer." Tom's heart swelled with pride. His son was ambitious in ways Tom had never been able to be, but Danny had also inherited his father's compassion and sense of right and wrong. The pond where the accident happened was renovated with proper safety barriers and warning signs. A small plaque was installed that read, "In honor of Tom Miller, who risked everything to save a stranger's child. True heroism is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it." Every year on the anniversary of the accident, the community gathered at the pond for a memorial service. Not to mourn, but to celebrate the power of selfless love and the difference one person can make. Mr. Harrison, now like a grandfather to Danny, often spoke at these gatherings. "Tom Miller showed us that heroism isn't about being rich or powerful," he would say. "It's about choosing to help when help is needed, regardless of the cost to yourself." In a world that often seems cold and selfish, Tom reminded us that love and courage still exist. Years later, when Danny was grown with children of his own, he would tell them the story of their grandfather's courage. "Your grandpa wasn't famous or rich," he would say. "He was just a construction worker who loved his son and couldn't stand to see a child in danger. But in that moment when it mattered most, he chose love over fear, sacrifice over safety." Danny's children would listen with wide eyes, proud to carry the name Miller, knowing it meant something special. Tom lived to see his grandchildren grow up, to walk Danny down the aisle at his wedding, and to watch his son become a successful engineer who built schools and hospitals instead of just houses. But Tom's greatest achievement wasn't the business he helped build or the recognition he received. It was the example he set, that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they act from love. The little boy he saved, Marcus, grew up to become a doctor, dedicating his life to saving others just as Tom had saved him. "I owe my entire life to your grandfather," Marcus would tell Danny's children. "Every life I save as a doctor is possible because he was brave enough to jump in that freezing water." The ripples of Tom's single act of heroism continued to spread, touching countless lives across generations. And in the end, that's how heroes are truly measured, not by the size of their bank accounts or the fame they achieve, but by the love they show and the lives they touch. Tom Miller, the single dad who took an electric shock to save a dying boy, proved that the greatest power in the world isn't money or fame, it's the courage to love without limits, even when it costs everything. His legacy lived on in every life he touched, every heart he inspired, and every person who chose courage over comfort because they remembered the story of a construction worker who became a hero by simply doing what love demanded. The measure of Tom Miller's life wasn't in the years he lived, but in the love he gave and the lives he saved directly and indirectly, through one moment of perfect, selfless courage. And that, perhaps, is the most beautiful story of all.